Stack Shifters, written by Alexandra Jaouiche. Right off the bat, I'm going to say that I can't disclose the name of my university. I know that makes me lose a lot of credibility, but I'm a senior entering the job market, and based off my friends, family, security, school administrators, everyone I've told's reactions, having this story even remotely related to me could seriously hurt my chances of starting a career. That being said, I still want to share my experience, just in case at least one person believes me and avoids making the same mistake. So here goes. It was the first semester of my senior year, right around final season. I had a fair number of classes where I needed to nail the final to get a decent grade. So I was holed up in the library most of the time. Oh, I forgot to mention. My university's library isn't open 24/7. They close up at 12:30 a.m. They alert the students on the loudspeakers repeatedly and send security to sweep the floors and classrooms. It's annoying, but there are other places on campus that you can move to keep studying. Anyway, because of COVID and online classes, a lot of the classrooms were converted to study spaces since professors didn't need them for teaching. I had commandeered one of those classrooms for myself, and to make sure that no one else would come in and disturb me, I locked the door. I figured that I would watch the time and hear the announcement on the loudspeakers, even if the security guards couldn't come in to get me out. Unfortunately, I was getting really into the review videos for my biology class, God bless Khan Academy, and by the time that I looked up at the clock, it was 1:17 a.m. I couldn't remember hearing the loudspeaker announcement, but then again, my headphones had been in for the good part of an hour. I went to go and fill up my water bottle, and the library was dead empty. No students, no security guards, no janitors, nothing. I wasn't surprised, and it was so cool. There was something special about having the place that I had spent most of my undergrad in all to myself. I did stupid things, running through the first floor stacks, snooping behind the information desk, dancing in the middle of the student conversations section. After I got the willies out, I just stood there, I don't know, listening. The longer that I stood there, the more uncomfortable I got. The floor-to-ceiling windows that wrapped around the library made me uneasy with how dark and reflective they were. It was weird, but I figured it was because it was 1:45 a.m. and I was completely alone in a massive building. Just general thinking too hard things, heebie-jeebies. I went back to studying and I locked the door to the classroom again, just to make myself feel better. It felt stupid, but at the same time, it didn't work. 10 minutes into my note cards and I could barely focus. I felt jittery and on edge. I still figured that it was nothing. I'd been downing coffee all day, I was overtired, and once again, alone in an empty, silent building. I packed up my stuff and I went to try the entrance to the library. The doors were automatic, so I thought that there was a good chance that they weren't locked and just turned on, allowing me to force them open. Nope, they were locked. I went around to the back entrance, which is rarely locked, except for that night. Of course. I picked up my phone to call one of my housemates to see if they could help me break out, but my phone was dead. I dug through my bag, hoping on the off chance that I had brought my charger, but I never do, so it wasn't a shocker to not find it. I started to panic, justifying how I felt with the fact that I was locked in and I couldn't go home until 8 a.m. when the library reopened. But it wasn't that. I was sweating at this point. The hair on my arm was standing up, my heart was pounding. Logically, I could have just gone up to the 5th floor lounge and slept on one of the couches. I'd done it before as a quick nap between classes, but I couldn't. I was wide awake. Instead, I decided to walk around and check out the floors. Maybe get back into that special, happy, introspective mood that I was in when I first found out that I had the place all to myself. I stopped lying to myself on the third floor, the Latin American Studies floor. To be fair, it was decorated for Dia de los Muertos, so there were skeletons everywhere, so maybe that set me off. But I doubt it. They were dressed up in costumes, dresses, makeup, etc. Not super terrifying. I was moving the stacks back and forth, peeking between the shelves. You know how some parts of the library will have shelves that can move to save space? Of course, there were signs everywhere telling people to check between them to make sure that you weren't crushing someone. And when I saw something flicker out of the corner of my eye, I was jumpy and anxious, so this isn't surprising. What was surprising was the fact that I could have sworn that I saw a long, thin finger disappearing into the shelf behind me. But those shelves were less than 4 inches apart. There was no way that anyone could have been standing there. But, like I said, I was done lying to myself. I was terrified. Something was wrong. I sprinted out of there. And after I was sure that sleeping wasn't an option, I had to keep moving. You know how I said earlier that the library was empty and silent? I was wrong on both accounts. As the night dragged on, I kept hearing rustling like book pages, and also loud, unexplained thuds. I realized that if I made a lot of noise or stayed in one place, they'd get closer. I got good at figuring out which directions to move, but I was definitely outnumbered. No matter what floor I ran to, the sounds followed me. It seemed like my presence would disturb or, I don't know, awaken something. It was just the sounds until around 5 a.m. I wouldn't say that I had gotten comfortable, but I knew the pattern. I knew what to expect. Move a floor, hear a rustle, move across the room, stand behind the stacks, hear a thud, change positions. When I heard more than one sound in a row in the same spot, or one that seemed too close, change floors. Space the floors out. If I went to 6, then I'd go to 2, then 5, then basement, then 3, then 6, then 1, then 4, etc. I'd alternate between the elevators and the staircases. But on the 5th floor, as I was getting off the elevator, I saw something. I thought that I was going to piss myself. Those giant, reflective windows that had been giving me the heebie-jeebies a couple of hours earlier came back to bite me in the ass. Or maybe to save me, I don't know. But I looked at the window and I saw myself. Man, I looked like crap. Bloodshot eyes, panicked expression, pale. But I was nothing compared to what I saw behind me. I understood how I saw the finger, because slinking around the corner was the longest, thinnest thing I've ever seen. It was human, but like Slenderman-esque human. Like it was stretched out beyond how thin bones should be. It would have been more than narrow enough to slide between the closed stacks behind me. I wish I could say that I snapped around, ran to the shelf to uncover the mystery. No, I stood there, frozen, staring at the reflection until I watched whatever it was move past my field of vision. The worst part was I could barely see the body between the books. It was so slender. If I hadn't known it was there, I would have never caught it. After that, I was a mess. I didn't stop moving. Anytime I had the breath to run, I would. I felt insane racing through the building, but at the time it seemed like the only option. Looking back, I'm still not convinced that it wasn't the only option. Everything I heard seemed closer. I saw more flickers out of the corner of my eye that kept resembling long, overstretched limbs. Reflections of things slinking between the bookshelves. I don't know how I made it to 7:45. I figured they'd either close in or my heart would give out. But it came. And I know it came because that's when the elevators started running. I was on the second floor across the hall from them when I heard the whirring. I'm proud that that time I didn't freeze. I ran across the library to see all the lights on the elevators lit, pointing up. Then I froze. I wanted to vomit. I honestly had never given much thought to the types of creatures I was dealing with, and for some reason, it never occurred to me that they could go up and down stairs and use elevators. I had this idea that they were confined to the floors that I had heard them on. I was really wrong. I ran to the stairs, and I figured that if maybe worst comes to worst, I could throw the heavy-duty electric stapler through a window to make it out alive. Thank God, this whole time I had perfected running down the stairs almost completely silent. At the landing before the first floor, I heard something that made me realize what a monumental mistake I had made. Have you seen that video of that creepy girl that runs and jumps like a horse? Hands and feet on the ground at the same time? That video has always freaked me out. And what I heard coming up the stairs from the basement, just 5 flights away from me, was the slapping of hands and feet against the ground as if something was running just like that creepy girl. The elevators were a trap. I don't know why they hadn't cornered me earlier in the night, because it was clear they are intelligent enough to set up traps that I would fall for, no questions asked. They probably enjoyed watching me sweat. But for anyone else that finds themselves in this situation, the elevators are a trap. It's a ploy to force you down the stairways. When you hear the sound of those hands and feet slapping the ground, you need to start running. Run as fast as you can. I was able to get myself in a first-floor elevator, and as soon as the doors closed, I slammed the emergency button, hoping that it would keep me safe for the last 15 minutes of the night. Why didn't you do that earlier? Yeah, I've heard that before. It's because I was scared out of my wits. I didn't think of it, and honestly, being trapped in that small space the whole night, it seems like a great way to make me a sitting duck for whatever is out there in the stacks. It was the longest 15 minutes of the night. I'm not ashamed to admit, I started sobbing. Every thud that I heard from outside seemed to be getting closer. And when the elevator started moving again and the doors finally opened, I felt my vision narrowing to a pinpoint. To see the security guard standing there staring at me was a bigger relief than anything else I've ever felt. She was looking at me with a mix of concern and pity, and after that I don't remember. Exhaustion, relief, anxiety, all of it coming to an end. I passed out. Later on, everyone agreed that while I did end up getting locked in the library, everything else was a figment of my overworked, exhausted brain. My phone was dead. I have no proof. I know I sound crazy. But it seems like overkill that the afternoon that next day, the president of the university sent a school-wide announcement via email urging students not to ignore the 12:30 closing time of the library, or that security now makes 3 sweeps of the classroom instead of 2 and has a skeleton key for all of the rooms in the building. Either way, I never went back to the library for the rest of the semester, and I never intend to go back to a library late at night ever again. I don't know if this happens in all places, but I don't want to find out.